All right, and welcome into the second edition of SouthCoast End Zone for this season. I'm Tim Weisberg.
I'm Lori Loss.
And we are here to talk with you about the upcoming week of high school football here on the South Coast. Of course, we're having some technology issues tonight, so we don't have our multiple cameras that we usually have. We don't have highlight cam.
No.
So we're actually lucky that we even have one camera working. So
Yes.
And the phone will be ringing off the hook in the background because I'm supposed to be out there answering high school calls.
Me too.
Right, so coaches, if we didn't answer the phone, you know what we were doing. All right, well, we had a pretty exciting opening week, and I noticed that we had a lot of action on Twitter.
Yes, oh yeah, everyone was tweeting from the games. They were tweeting after the games. It was a lot of fun. Myself tweeting and following, some of the retweets and the favorites, and it was definitely a fun time for social media.
Minus little technology issues of your own.
Yeah, I had to basically hang out of the press box at Bishop Stang to have my tweets go through because I didn't have very good internet access in the press box. So.
I can usually tell on a Friday night when I'm here working the phones, I can tell when Laurie's got an exciting game because she doesn't have a chance to tweet as much and to retweet as much. But I'm looking at the scores of that game, and I'm like, it doesn't seem like it's a close game. Where are the updates coming? And then I find out it's...
Yeah, Twitter. I was having an issue with Twitter. So, but I did get to tweet a really cool photo of some Bishop Stang fans with some helmets on before the game. That was exciting. That was when my internet was working, so I did get some early tweets in.
Where are you going this week?
I'm not sure yet. Looks like I might be going to Fairhaven, so going over to the bridge.
Should have some good signal there.
Yeah, so...
All right, well, why don't you start us off with the first and 10 of the season.
All right, sounds good. Number 10, a lack of players for Cape Cod Tech cancels Fairhaven's season opener last Friday night. Number 9, Charlie McKeeman led Bishop Stang's offense with 14 rushes for 89 yards and 2 touchdowns. Number 8, GMB Voc Tech quarterback Tyler Sylvia had a hand in both of his team's touchdowns last week, throwing for one and running for the other in a 14-7 win over BP. Number 7, Matt Michael picks up where his brother Nate left off at Apponequet, rushing for a team-high 85 yards and scoring twice, once in the air and once on the ground. Number 6, Nick Simonetti picked up a fumble forced by Mitch Laranger and returned it 30 yards for a score to put Dartmouth up for good in a win over Bishop Stang. Number 5, Mike Raposa completes 8 of 16 passes for 112 yards and 2 touchdowns in New Bedford's win over Taunton. Number 4, New Bedford's defense scored twice on a Jared Tavares fumble recovery in the end zone, and another came on Alonzo Gudamers. I know I'm gonna say his name wrong.
Alonzo Guillaume.
Guillaume's. He returned it a fumble 48 yards for a score. Number 3, Old Rochester did the impossible, beating Martha's Vineyard on the Vineyard, shutting out the Vineyarders 25-0. Nolan Bergeron powered the Bulldogs with 2 rushing touchdowns. Number 3, Tim Smith carried the ball 7 times for 100 yards and scored twice for Dartmouth in that win over Bishop Stang. And number 1, the player of the week, Darian Fernandez, racked up 247 yards and notched six touchdowns for Wareham.
6 times?
I don't know, but I don't know. It was an amazing game. I was following it on Twitter, and I just couldn't. I was almost too excited, so I was following all the tweets, and I had to pay attention to my game. But he helped Wareham beat Falmouth 51-14. So
do we find out if that's a school record yet?
We haven't yet.
All right, because the last one that I know of was Hart Andrade in 1998 had 5 touchdowns because he beat my friend Chad Goucher's record from 95 of 4 touchdowns in a game. So,
but we will find out before this week's games. We will know.
Sure, Dan Nault will definitely know. So if you're watching, Dan, let us know.
Yes, let us know. Tweet it, Facebook us, anything.
At SC_varsity. That's our Twitter account. You can like us, southcoastvarsity.com. on Facebook, and you can always call us too. That works too. The phones still work, right?
Yeah, they work. Or you can
Nothing else is working.
You can come up to us at games and speak to us as well.
So plenty of ways to get a hold of us. We're trying to make this more fun and interactive, and we'll have different things going on during the course of the season. Let's get right into this week's action now, because now that we've seen what these teams have, now the challenge becomes to keep it going.
Yep.
And there's some tough games on the schedule, including Fairhaven didn't get a chance to see what they had this week. So they have to host Dighton Rehoboth, and what'll surely be a tough game.
Okay, well, going into the season, talking to some of the kids at Fairhaven, I mean, they're excited to prove themselves and kind of to show what they can do in the conference. And last week's game was canceled against Cape Cod Tech, non-league game. So these kids are hungry. They're even hungrier that they get to open the season this week against Dighton Rehoboth, because last year the Falcons beat them pretty handedly, 41-6. The Blue Devils fell behind early in that game and never could recover. So Fairhaven, I mean, they've had to sit back and kind of see everybody else, start their seasons off, and they're ready to play. I had sent a tweet over through Twitter asking what was the biggest surprise of week 1, and Christian Braga from Fairhaven said, our game getting canceled. That was kind of the biggest surprise. But Fairhaven, like we've been saying all preseason, they have some great running backs, Kobe Edwards, Billy Pyers. They also have a deep threat in Connor Flynn to catch the ball. And they have 2 quarterbacks that either one is a star, Christian Braga and Jared Antel. Yeah, so either one of those guys could start under center. I know they're excited to get out there and actually get to play. And DR is actually coming off a pretty bad loss to Somerset Berkeley, losing 24-0.
Wow.
So
when was the last time DR was on that side of one of those scores?
It's been a few years. It's been maybe at least 3 or 4 years since DR had a down year. And really, reading up on that game against Somerset, I think Dighton Rehoboth only got into Somerset territory once in that game. So, I mean, this could really be a game that Fairhaven comes out, establishes themselves early, and gets a big win over a traditionally strong conference team. I think last week DR had a total of 92 total yards of offense, and 36 of them came on one play. Wow. So it doesn't sound like they're moving the ball much, and I don't know if they'll be able to keep up with the Blue Devils.
Sounds like the Titans against the Patriots. Well, I know that we're doing this now earlier in the week than we
no picks yet for Buddy.
So we don't have the formal picks, but I mean, what is your sense of what will happen in this game?
I think Fairhaven's going to win, and I think they're going to win pretty big. I think they're going to score at least 30 points, and from what it sounds like for DR, I think that DR will be lucky to get 1 touchdown on the board. But then again, what do I know? I wasn't at the DR game last week, so I'm not too sure of when you see them losing to Somerset that big. Is Somerset really that good? It's so early in the season to tell, but it should be a good game for Fairhaven fans.
So that game is scheduled for Friday at 7 p.m. Moving on to our next game, staying in the South Coast Conference, we have Case at Wareham, also Friday night at 7 p.m. And I think the Vikings showed us that they've got plenty of options this year.
Yeah, well, I know we were sitting here last week talking about some of the options that Wareham does have, and then we were saying that some of the guys were sitting out. Charles Trenfaglia and Elias Tobia. They both were going to be out for that first game, and I guess Darian heard us talking about those 2 guys and said, well, hey, I can carry the load a little bit. 247 yards. 6 touchdowns. One of them was on a kickoff or punt return. I mean, this kid did everything for them, and I don't even think he played the 4th quarter. So all that came in 3 quarters. I mean, it's amazing, But is that going to be? That's not going to be the case every week. He's not going to be scoring 6 touchdowns every week, but maybe he will. Prove me wrong.
They're sure that he can.
But I think he really kind of put Wareham on notice. I think a lot of the preseason, everyone's been talking about Fairhaven and a little bit about Wareham, but having that big of a output, week 1 really kind of sets the tone for the season. And Anthony Abbott, had a solid game at quarterback. So I mean, Wareham is showing, hey, we can compete and we can score some points pretty fast too. So it should be an interesting game because it is against Case. Case has been out of the South Coast Conference now for 2 years. It was a 2-year hiatus. They're back. They have what many people are saying is the best quarterback in the South Coast Conference, Taylor Furtado. Last week, he didn't have that big of a game against Diamond on offense, but he did return a interception for a touchdown. So, he does go both ways, but he is considered, one of the area's top quarterbacks. And last week, the Cardinals were led by their rushing attack. Corey Andrade, Anthony Bison, and Jack Sear, those kind of the guys that led, the charge last week. But really, I don't know if Case can keep up with Wareham. I mean, that's the big question mark. And even The Case head coach Dave Brigado said to the Fall River Herald after the game last week, of Wareham. Wareham has one of the best running backs I've seen in a long time. I saw them Friday night, and it was like a man among boys. And that's talking about Darian Fernandez. So right there, they know that they're in for a tough game. So, and that will be 7 o'clock at Wareham High School. That hasn't been moved.
It's not every day you go up against somebody who made ESPN top 10 plays.
Yeah.
Even though it was in basketball, but still. So, and I thank you for not acknowledging my little setup there with, Wareham has plenty of options. And they're all sitting there on the sideline watching, though. That's the problem. All right, so let's move on to the next game, Apponequet at Bishop Feehan, 7 p.m. on Friday night. And, this is going to be a tough game either way. It's going to be a physical game, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I think Apponequet has kind of been one of those teams that's flying under the radar. They're young this year. Everyone's talking about how young they are. Everyone's graduated. But, some of these kids do have experience, and I know a lot of them have that desire to win. The big thing for Apponequet is that, they have the experience with the quarterback, with Cam Costa, but it's the running backs. Nate Michael's younger brother, Matt Michael, Nanfelt, Troy Nanfelt, he's the younger brother. They have some of these guys that, they were in their brother's shadows, last year.
They've been around the program.
Yeah, they've been around. Yeah. So it's whether or not these guys can kind of, catch up that pace. And, Matt Michael proved last week, he led the Lakers offense, scored 2 touchdowns. That's what you need from a sophomore, especially, in that year where there's not a lot of seniors on the team. And Cam Costa, you can't even tell that he's only a junior, the way he's leading the offense as well. I know whenever we talk about Bishop Feehan, everyone's always thinking, top of the EAC. I don't know if they're going to be up there this year, especially after their first game. They lost to Attleboro 19-7, and their lone touchdown, they only had 1 touchdown.
This just in.
And, here we go. We actually are getting an update, live update, breaking news. Should I go into this real quick? Might as well.
Yeah, if you want to do it now, and then we'll talk about it when we get to that game.
Breaking news, Old Rochester football, 7 p.m. game, originally was moved up to 5, is actually going to be played at 4:30. So, breaking news right here.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Mick.
Yeah, Mick Colagio with that breaking news. Attleboro, they had a lot of mistakes and penalties that really cost them in the Attleboro. Bishop Feehan had a lot of mistakes that cost them against Attleboro, and really
geographically close.
Well, yeah, that's the same area right there. And they had a late scoring threat in that game, and they couldn't convert in a 4th down. And usually when you talk about Feehan, you talk about great defense, and you talk about, a team that can put points on the board, and only to be able to come out and score 1 touchdown in week 1, that doesn't really say too much about their potential. So, Apponequet is going on the road, so it's always tough to play at Feehan, but it should be a pretty good game, this game, so.
All right, so that is Apponequet at Bishop Feehan, 7 o'clock on Friday night. Now, moving on to our next game, which we just gave you the time update. Let me see if I can follow along here. It's not 7 o'clock. It's not 5 o'clock. It's 4:30 p.m.
Yes.
Old Rochester will host Bishop Stang, and I'm pretty sure they're basically going to just walk out of the classroom, put on their uniforms, and go play. Pretty much.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it's going to be.
But that's going to be an interesting game when you see after what Old Rochester was able to do to Martha's Vineyard on Friday night. They've got weapons. They've got all kinds of weapons on offense, and the defense is ready to play. Buddy's not here, but I have to bring it up. I did pick Old Rochester to win at Martha's Vineyard. That was the one pick that we had differently last week, so I am leading Buddy at this point in the season. I did have faith in Old Rochester to go to Martha's Vineyard, just because I know that they have added, some big threats in the Phillips brothers. Nolan Bergeron is back at, quarterback. They do have, kind of these offensive threats, these kids that can score, and really they proved it this past week. Going to Martha's Vineyard, Nolan Bergeron, I don't think he completed a pass. I think he only threw. He was 0 for 1. Yeah.
0 for 1, but the kid had 2 rushing touchdowns. One of them was for what was it,
79 yards?
Yeah, 79 yards.
30.
Yeah, so he broke out some big plays. Richie Phillips scored a touchdown, and Raekwon, the 2 brothers, they each scored touchdowns. So really, I mean, the key for Old Rochester is just that ground attack, and they've proven against the Vineyard that they can pick up yards and that they can score, with their ground attack. And it's going to be interesting to see how Stang responds after the loss to Dartmouth.
Right.
I mean, last week I was sitting there in the press box saying, wow, I should have picked Stang to win this game because the Spartans came out strong. They scored the opening touchdown of the game. It was on a Charlie McKeeman, touchdown run. They just looked good, and I think some of it had to do with maybe nerves for Dartmouth.
Or did they look good because of the new uniforms?
It could be because of the new uniforms, too, and it could be because I had such a great seat in the press box. They personally brought a chair from the high school across the parking lot, across the field, and up the bleachers for me to sit in.
That's when you know you're special.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or short.
I think it's short. But really, I think for Stang, they need to play more mistake-free football. They had some turnovers, like I was saying earlier, that fumble that Nick Simonetti picked up in return for a touchdown. They also had some penalties, but they have to have more than just McKeeman. They have to have Michael Pratt, pick up some yards running the ball. They also have to get Luke Save more involved. Those two guys, they carried the ball, but they didn't really get much out of that. Really Charlie was the only one that could kind of break free. So it'll be interesting to see how Bishop Stang responds, after that loss. And it's, another local team that they're playing, so, it's a good rivalry they've been developing, even though, it's a non-conference game. So it'll be good to work out those
A lot
things.
of kids from that area. I don't know if they're on the football team, but there's a lot of kids from that Old Rochester area that go to Stang.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of familiarity there, and we know what that breeds.
Well, and also, to kind of bring this up, is the new head coach, Ryan Sylvia, used to play at Old Rochester, Stang's new coach. So, right there's our storyline, right?
Yeah, it's going to be a big rivalry game for sure.
Yes.
And that is at 2:15 on
4:30.
Thursday. I don't know. 4:30 on Friday at Old Rochester. And so let's see. Our next game.
Voc Tech?
Yeah, Bourne at Greater New Bedford Voc Tech. That's going to be a 4 o'clock game.
Yes, 4 o'clock.
So that's
game.
even earlier than the Old Rochester game.
Yep.
So that is definitely like a roll right out of class and get onto the field type of thing. Now, I don't know much about Bourne this year. I know that they had a lot of team weapons last year. So
they graduated a lot from last year's lineup. So, I mean, they came out and they had a solid showing, but they lost last week to Sandwich. I think it was 34-12. They did get 2 rushing touchdowns from the same guy, Chad Marsh, but they saw their 15-game winning streak, dating back a couple years end. I mean, when you graduate, I think it was Epps and some of these other guys that, had these unbelievable careers. It's going to be I don't know if I want to say rebuilding year, but it's going to be kind of one of those transitional years for Bourne that won the conference last year and, won the Super Bowl last year. So really, when you graduate all those seniors, sometimes, unless you have a lot of experienced juniors coming up, it's that 1 year that you have to kind of go through that transition. But I mean, as much as I want to talk about Voc Tech's offense last week in the win over Bristol Plymouth, the defense was unbelievable. They had Nick Richard had an interception that set up the first touchdown, which was a Tyler Sylvia scoring strike to Trevor Menya. But also late in the game, Bristol Plymouth was actually trying to score. They got down to 4th and goal from the 5 with less than 2 minutes left, and Jason Lavery had a quarterback sack, and that preserved the win. So, I mean, we're talking about, Voc Tech, a team that did graduate some guys, Tristan Clark last year. Some of these guys, they don't have a lot of guys back. They have some guys back on offense, but not a ton. Mm-hmm. But really, the defense, stood its ground, and preserved that win. So, I mean, I could sit here and say Voc Tech's going to be 2-0. I mean, with Bourne losing some kids,
sure.
some kids to graduation, and just what they showed last week on both sides of the ball. They weren't dominant on either side, but they played well on both sides. So
we know I'm a Wareham guy, so any purple loss is good for me. So that'll be 4 o'clock at Voc Tech, and then also at 4 o'clock on Friday is New Bedford at Silver Lake. I know it takes me forever to get to Silver Lake. How are these kids must be getting dismissed at like noon.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, to get to Silver Lake by 4 o'clock. I don't know if you're going to cover that game.
Coach Golden, we would like you to give us a call because we do have 7 games on the schedule that night, and it is a hike. Also, Bob Lomp, you need to give us a call as well because we're not going to make it out to Bishop Fan as well on Friday. Yeah, some of these games are just a little too far away, even with the 4 o'clock start. I mean, I guess if we had more staff, we could be there. But I
think of all the time they have to call us after the game.
Yeah, I've been to Kingston.
So don't wait till 11, please.
and I know it's definitely far out there, and I know the way the field is situated. It's kind of like it's almost like inside of a mountain. You know, it's like a hill,
like that,
and it's down below, and you know, it's very. Silver Lake, when they play at home, I feel like they have that advantage, just the way that the field is situated. I went a few years ago to see New Bedford there, and New Bedford lost, and you know, Silver Lake dominated the game. This year, I really think New Bedford, you know, has the upper hand, and just the way that the Whalers played last week against Taunton, a team that's much improved. You know, Taunton kept kind of bringing it to New Bedford. I was listening to it on the radio, and really, you know, they responded. You know, the defense scored 2 touchdowns for New Bedford. Mike Raposa got the job done through the air. I think he had over 100 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. The big thing is the ground attack. You know, they didn't pick up a lot of yards on the ground, but hey, when you can have a quarterback that can throw for over 100 yards, you know, maybe you don't need to establish the ground attack, you know.
And the other thing we're forgetting, too, about this Friday, I mean, a lot of these games are going to be played in the afternoon.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be in the 80s on
Yeah.
Friday. So, I mean, that's going to play a factor, I think, into how some of these offenses can work.
Yeah, and really Silver Lake is coming off a 42-14 loss to Minnechaug. They fell behind early, 21-0 after the first quarter, and 35-7, you know, at halftime. So it's really, you know, this is a team that has started out the season struggling, where New Bedford, you know, came out and ended up beating Taunton 34-20, and that was a competitive game, back and forth. So the big thing for New Bedford really to focus on defensively is Dan Flynn. Last week for Silver Lake, he threw for both of their touchdowns in the loss. So that's kind of, they can key on him defensively and, you know, keep the ball in Mike Raposa's hands or Mike LaJoy's, then good things will happen.
Whalers, here's my suggestion. Win the game, beat up on Silver Lake, you know, improve to 2-0, and then tell Coach Golden on the way home, you got to stop at Paisanos. It's right there on the way. Fantastic food.
Well, I thought you were going to say for Coach Golden to call us first before they stop.
Yeah, please call us before you go to Paisanos. And definitely call us, Coach Lomp, call us as soon as you can, because you're going to 7 o'clock games.
Yeah, that'll be tricky.
All right, well, how about Attleboro at Dartmouth? That's going to be a 7 p.m. Friday game. And I'm assuming we'll have somebody at that game.
Yes. Mick Calagio.
Aha.
Yes.
He of the breaking news.
Yeah, hopefully he won't be writing, you know, he's our hockey writer. Hopefully he'll remember some of the terminology for football, and he won't write, you know, he had the puck, and, you know, it'll, we'll have to.
He's always got hockey on the brain.
Well, it should be an interesting game. Last year, the Dartmouth-Attleboro game, Dartmouth went up to Attleboro and beat them 17-14. It was an exciting finish. I think it was Brock had an interception late or had a touchdown late. It was one of those exciting games that kind of the team just used the rest of the season. Everything that happened last season kind of went back to that Attleboro win. This year, Attleboro's a little bit down, or actually not a little bit down. Attleboro beat Bishop Fee, and they opened the season 19-7. So, you know, I think Attleboro's a little bit improved this year. The big person that Dartmouth's defense is going to have to keep an eye on is Malik Clark. He actually racked up 198 yards and had on 18 rushes and scored 3 rushing touchdowns in last week's win. So he's kind of the focal point of the offense for Attleboro. And really, Dartmouth, you can't sit here and say that there is a focal point for their offense because, you know, Timmy Clark had, you know, 100 yards rushing. Mitch Larander had a 60-yard touchdown run. Dalton Soares, you know, threw a touchdown pass to Austin Williams last week. That was for 41 yards. There's so many different guys that can do different things for Dartmouth, which I think that benefits the Indians because they don't just have that one guy you can key in on.
Right.
You know, they have those different options. And really, last week, you know, Dartmouth started off slow. You know, they had an early turnover. You know, Stain kind of took it to them, and you know, finally Tim Smith got on the scoreboard, and then Nick Simonetti scored on that fumble recovery that he returned for touchdown, and that was what really got them going. You know, it was a slow start. Dalton Soares, it was his first varsity start at quarterback, and he had an up and down day. He threw an interception. He threw a touchdown pass. You know, he fumbled the ball, and then, you know, Dartmouth recovered a fumble recovery. Then Soares is also the team's kicker. He missed an extra point, kicked a 30-yard field goal. I mean, it was kind
What
of...
do you call even Steven right there?
Yeah, afterwards, Rick White was like, it was a mixed bag. There was a lot of really good things and a lot of, things that weren't so good. But, overall, a solid start for a first-year quarterback. So, I mean, look for him to kind of feel more comfortable leading that offense that does have the different options. The big thing for Dartmouth is consistency. They've shown that they can make the big plays. They actually had 2 kickoff returns for touchdowns called back against Stang. So, I mean, even on the special teams, they have that ability for the big plays, but they have to be more consistent every down. So,
all right,
that should be a good one.
That is going to be at 7 p.m. Attleboro at Dartmouth. And then Saturday, we have one game. It's at 1 p.m., and that's St. Clement, or is it Clement? I don't know.
I think St. Clement.
Yeah. I don't know my saints. St. Clement at Old Colony. And this will be the opener for the Cougars?
Yes, this will be the opener. I know when I went to Old Colony during the summer, Matt Tran, the athletic director, told me that, hey, we've been opening the season against Trinity Catholic the last few years, and this year they scheduled somebody else to open the season against. I'm scrambling to get, another opponent. It was about 2 weeks before the season began.
Spurned by Trinity.
And so they weren't able to actually get an opponent for week 1, so they're starting the season a week late, but they have added an opponent for their bye week, which is later this month. I think it's September 28th. They'll be playing New Mission at 1 o'clock. Also breaking news. So we just found out about that today.
Yeah.
So, I mean, really, Old Colony, it's always kind of a team that lacks depth, every year I think we sit here and say that they're young just because they have a lot of juniors usually in the lineup, but they have the weapons. They have Matt LeBlanc, they have Kevin Blaze, which I love his last name, track star. I say this every time, and they have Jake Pringle. These are all kids that, if you follow football in the area, you're going to be hearing about their names. These kids are going to, rack up some yards and they're going to score some touchdowns. I know St. Clement last year beat Old Colony 35-6, and they opened the season with a win over Keefe Tech. So this is a team that's at Old Colony's level, maybe a little bit above. So it's going to take kind of those 3 guys to really put it together to give the Cougars a win. I know on Twitter they have a Twitter account, and they've been tweeting to us, and they're like counting down the hours to open the season. So I know, just like Fairhaven, they're excited to kick off the season, even though it's been a week late.
Why didn't Fairhaven and Old Colony just play last week?
Hey, they could have
solved a lot of problems.
Why didn't we think of this?
I know. We should be athletic directors. Actually, I think Wareham could probably use this right now.
Yeah, well, maybe they'll have somebody taking over there, so we'll see.
Let's hope. I think it's a pitching effort until the spring is the plan. So that should.
That makes it tough.
If you need our help,
scheduling,
sports@s-t.com, Twitter @sc_varsity,
Yep.
Facebook, like us, southcoastvarsity.com on Facebook.
And if you're at any of these games and you have updates, feel free to tweet us at @sc_varsity. If you have questions, you can also tweet us. I know we've been getting a lot of people, sending us messages. And
I'm expecting to see pictures. I'm expecting to see video. I'm expecting to see all kinds of stuff from you people, because I'm stuck here on the computer answering phones, and I need to see what it's like at the games. And unfortunately, Laurie's the only one of our writers at the games who can figure out how to work Twitter on our phone.
I'm not the only one. Andrew Tornado
does a great job.
He did a great job,
yes.
Especially, kind of recording what was going on with Darian Fernandez, because I kept looking down on my phone and moving it around so I could get internet so I could actually see what the updates were.
And Nick's a pretty prolific tweeter.
Yeah, he can tweet. He'll be tweeting from Dartmouth.
And Ed, if we could just get him to get rid of that Zach Morris phone, then maybe we could have a chance. But
yeah, but all the fans and followers, anything that you tweet, as long as there's no profanities, I'll retweet it. So
yeah, keep it clean.
Yeah, keep it clean.
But also keep it interesting.
Yes.
All right, so I think that does it for this week's show. We'll be back next week. We want to thank you for coming out in record numbers to watch our season opener, and we hope that you spread the word about SouthCoast End Zone to all your friends. Get everybody to watch it. Don't just wait for us to put it up there either. Retweet it, put it up on Facebook, send it out there. Get everybody to watch it, because we want to hear back from all of you. We want to get these rivalries going. So, so until next week, we'll see you under the lights
and in the end zone.